Hello, girls, guys, or otherwise. This is Rich with your Witchy Book Club series. This week we are going through Chapter 16, Lesson 12, entitled Coven Working. This is out of the Outer Temple Witchcraft by Christopher Penzak. If you would like to get your own copy, we're almost done with this book, but you can go back if you haven't been following along. You can go back and join us through the entirety of the book. Link will be below. A couple things before we get started. One, we are still. Well, I'm still taking suggestions whether or not we go into the shamanic temple, the part of the temple series, the Temple of Shamanic Witchcraft, I believe it's entitled, by Christopher Penzak. Do we go on to that one, or do we do another another book, just as a palate cleanser, and then we can come back to the temple series? Either way, doesn't matter to me, but leave your votes down below. I will be going through all of the votes that are cast and whatnot. And I'm just going to go through the ones that are on. Well, actually, I'm just going to go through all of them, no matter where they're posted on, what video they're posted on, and whatnot. So leave your suggestions down below. Do we go on, or do we go into another book and then come back to the series later? Because I do like the series. It's just that after a while, it's like, okay, this is Christopher Penzak, Christopher Penzak, Christopher Penzak. And it's like, do we go on to somebody else for a little bit? So yeah, I figured I'd leave that up to the mass votes. So I think as of right now, we're leaning towards going to another book. And I'm kind of hoping Modern Magic by Donald Michael Craig. But if we don't go through that one, that's fine. We'll pick it up some other time. Anyway, just a couple other announcements before I go on. One, if you have not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification to be notified whenever new videos are released. Comments down below on what you agree or disagree with, like or dislike, doesn't matter to me. All appeases the algorithmic gods of YouTube. All hail the algorithmic gods of YouTube. And make sure that you check out yesterday's video, the special report on the big project that has been happening, or that has been in the works, that I've been planning for the past year. So, long story short, if you have watched that, yes, I'm starting a Christo-Pagan church here on YouTube. So, yeah, if you would like to support that, down below is a link for Patreon. If you want to be a church founder, I'm going to try to plug that more often up until the end of the year. And then whenever we get into the new year, those tiers will change and all that stuff. So, yeah, if you want to be a church founder, I'm going to be leaning on the people that are Patreon subscribers for their input to finalize everything in the structure for the church services and whatnot, and how they are presented. Do I make a new channel? Do I and air it on both channels with the podcast? Because yes, we have a podcast coming out. Do I do that with just the podcast and the Christo-Pagan Sunday stuff? Do I do that just on the podcast, or do I include the tarot talks and everything else on there as well? Input like that is much needed. And I would really appreciate the little donations there, as little as $5 a month. Gets you access to that, to the Discord, to early releases and everything. So yeah, all of that, and setting up the Facebook, and you can join all of these as of the new year for free, but this is to be on the ground level of getting everything in and being a part of the setup for this. If you would like to donate and be a part of that, again, as little as $5. If you want to donate more, that's fantastic. That's fine. This will be a part of what drives how the services are conducted, what all we include, what we don't include, what topics we cover, all that stuff. So yeah, all that good stuff down in the description at the Patreon, and we can talk more about that in the Discord server, the Patreon only Discord server, until the new year. So with all that being said, and I think my mic is peaking just a little bit. Hold on there. Okay, I turned down the volume just a little bit because I think I might have been peaking a little bit. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on into chapter 16, lesson 12, Coven Working. I think this is the next to last chapter. I do believe, yes it is. So the reason I wanted to hold off on doing chapter 16 until after October 1st was because of that announcement. Because I am going to be talking a little bit about my vision for how the church is going to be set up and whatnot, and I will be speaking more on that for the Christo-Pagan Sunday. We're going to skip our normal lessons for now. They will be coming back, but I wanted to get the outline of the services as I envision them. I want to get those out before I continue on with the Christo-Pagan Sunday and whatnot. So look forward to that tomorrow for our Christo-Pagan Sunday. And if you are not a Christo-Pagan, don't think that you can't come to the church services. And more of that will be explained in tomorrow's video of how I envision this to actually work and whatnot. So yeah. More details on that tomorrow, and some to be revealed in today's video. So let's go ahead and get on into this. Let me take a drink first, and then we're going to get into the first sentence of the chapter as per our usual tradition here, or grandest tradition here. So, this is on page 393 for those following along in your Outer Temple Witchcraft hymnals. If you learned your craft in a traditional coven, you would be learning to do rituals and spell work in the context of group as well as solitary. A good strong opening. I can't find fault in that. Most of the time whenever I think of covens, the thing that comes to mind immediately is everything is done in a group setting. And that's something that was pretty solid in my mind until Annie made some videos on what her experience was in coming up in a traditional Wiccan fashion in a coven. And yeah, to me, I always thought of covens like everything is done in the coven. You don't do spell work on your own or something like that. That was my traditional thinking of what a coven is. Anytime you needed spell work done, everybody had to get together to do it. That was my thinking whenever I originally thought of covens. And it's still there in my mind a little bit, but then I go back to what Annie was saying, and I'm like, oh wait, no, that's not true. And I have to kind of reverse that thinking in my mind. It's a thing. It's the way my brain works. So then further on down, in such traditional covens, there is usually a high priestess as the leader, assisted by a high priest. For some, the leadership roles are reversed or split equally. I enjoy the equality aspect, especially the more and more that I become progressive in my beliefs and in my stance of humanity and whatnot, is, you know, things should be shared equally, and having somebody, in a position of power that is of the same gender or of the same sexual makeup as you can be important to people. Now, I say gender, which I want to separate that from gender and sexual, uh, you know, how do I want to say it? Damn, I can't think of the word. Uh, there's a difference between, the basic thing I'm trying to get to is there's a difference between your gender and what your genitals or birth certificate says. So there. Okay, the sex of an individual rather than the gender. Those are two separate things. So I wanted to make that clear. And let me go ahead and move my mic input down just a little bit because, again, I'm peeking into the red because I'm kind of loud today, apparently. I do like the thought of having somebody who is of the same sex as you, whether that is male, female, or some part in between or otherwise, being in a position of power. And that's kind of something I want to do with the church, but as of right now, I'm a person that identifies as a gay white male, and I don't have anybody that is interested in taking up a position of leadership as of right now because I just announced it. And when that person comes up, I will, of course, sit down with them, see where they are at and what they are like and whatnot, and see if it would be a good fit for the church, rather than just like saying, hey, I need a token person. Yeah, because that can be dangerous overall. So yeah, if somebody is interested in becoming a high priestess or I don't know, what would you call somebody that was non-binary? What would the title be? Whatever the title they want to be called. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. If there was somebody that was non-binary that came to me and said, hey, I want to be involved in the church, again, sit them down just like anybody else and go through everything with them of what would be expected of them, where they are in their station of their practice, of their tradition and whatnot, and see where they sit. If they are qualified and would benefit everybody else, absolutely bring them on board. I personally would not have an issue with that. So, yeah, I did want to say that. Further on down on 293, members start as initiates, and after a year and a day of study, with the leader's approval, may take an initiation as a first-degree witch. You hear this a lot, and I've never been in a coven setting, so I don't know. But from what I've heard, this is completely accurate. You take a year and a day study. It is a full year of lunar cycles, so you have, and a full year of the turning of the wheel and all that. So you have been a part of every part of the turning of the wheel. You have been part of the different moon cycles and different seasons and whatnot. You have seen how all of these things go, and then you have a chance to progress. If you decide at that point, hey, I want to definitely pursue this, it is for me, after this year and a day of study, you become an initiate, or you become a first degree, I'm sorry. Let's see, moving on here. Some traditions are very strict and will only allow one high priest or high priestess in the coven. And again, as per usual, I'm going to be bouncing around here. He did talk about the second degree and the third degree tier systems. I'm not going to cover all those. It's pretty straightforward what he's talking about here. Some traditions are very strict. Okay. So in this sentence of some traditions are very strict and will only allow one high priest or high priestess in a coven. Yes, I've heard that, and I like the other model system. I think that he does. I know he touches on it somewhere in this chapter. I can't remember exactly where, but he does mention where a high priest or high priestess will be the high priest or high priestess of that particular ritual, rather than needing to branch off into another coven or create their own coven. So I like that setup a lot more than the, oh, I've reached the high priesthood or the high priestesshood, and now I have to go start my own coven because I can't be a high priest whenever there's already a high priest for this coven. Something like that. I don't like the idea of that. I get why it is the way it is, but to me that just seems like something that, if you're in a group setting with people, then why would you, if you don't want to leave, why should you have to leave, is what I'm getting at. So I like the other setup of, hey, you're more than qualified to be able to run this circle. You want to do it? Go ahead. You're high priestess time, or high priestess, or otherwise, whatever. Moving on. Other traditions are less formal. There is no requirement to hive off, and respect is simply given to the elders of the group, while the elders give others the opportunity to grow and lead. This is the one I'm talking about. And then he goes on here. Certain traditions require a new applicant to start at the initiate level, even if they have had previous experience or initiation. Because it is a new tradition and they must learn it from the ground up. Others respect the previous training and will allow the new member to join at the appropriate rank. So I like the idea of the first sentence there that I read was what I was talking about, where others can lead the group and whatnot. The second part there, I like the way that they I like how some covens will take what you already know and kind of put you in an advanced placement. Say if you were a third degree in one tradition, but in a new tradition, maybe you only rank at like first degree or second degree with the knowledge that you have retained. If that's a situation, if you give a placement test or something like that, maybe they'll hit the third degree mark, maybe they'll hit just below it, maybe they haven't learned anything about, I don't know, herbs, and your coven is so connected to certain herb work or herbalism and whatnot that they really need to have that base knowledge, or that structured knowledge, that structured teaching, in order to be at the third degree. Maybe you set them at the second degree level because they know all the other stuff that you're doing, just not the herbalism stuff, for instance. So yeah, I kind of like that idea of taking a placement test whenever you switch from one coven to another. I think that is a logical way of going about it. Moving on. Many modern covens, mine included, are non-hierarchical and have no ranking system. I like having a no ranking system. The person in charge for that time is the person that's in charge for that time. Now, there are certain things that whenever I'm speaking about the church, as of right now, I'm in charge because I need to make sure that everything is, because legally everything's in my name right now. So I need to make sure that everything is happening in a legal way, in a logical way, that it doesn't get out of hand or whatnot, that we don't go down the wrong rabbit hole. But, eventually, whenever there are other people who, yes, I can count on them to, take over, and I can step back for a little bit and then come back in. Absolutely. The shared aspect of, hey, you don't need to be an ordained minister in order to give a service. If you are comfortable doing the service, then absolutely you should be able to give the service. So I kind of like that aspect of it. But as of right now for the church, it's basically going to be me up there doing the service and everything until other people come forward and have passed all the requirements or whatever that we set forward in order to be that person to be able to give the service and whatnot. So, I mean, I don't have many requirements besides, hey, where do you sit in your practice, all that stuff. That would be basically be my cutoff of, are you ready to lead others, or are you just doing this because you want to be able to speak and have a platform? There's a big difference, and I take that very seriously. At the bottom of 394 here, though I train my students in a 5-tier system based on the elements, and many are somewhat equivalent to the traditional ranks of Wicca, this has no bearing on membership in the coven. And I have my notes here. I said I haven't really thought of a tier system for the church yet, and I don't know if I want that. I'll leave that to the founders to bat around that idea with them, but yeah, I haven't really thought of a tiered system, and I don't know if I really like having a tiered system, because again, if you're qualified to be able to give the service, you should be able to give the service. But I mean, that's going to be something that if you are a founder through Patreon and whatnot, then yes, we will be talking about this, and I think we will have some debate on whether or not we do or do not have a tier system. So yeah, we'll debate it out, and more to come on that. Let's see. Also at the bottom of 394, the advantages of rotating authority are learning to work as a group and make group decisions. Absolutely agree on that. I think whenever other people lead the group, you can learn, because they might do something slightly different, and that actually appeals to people a lot better than doing things the same old way. So yeah, I can agree with that. At the top of 395 here, the disadvantage is a lack of focus or direction at times, and this can also be true. If you have a group setting where you don't have a particular person there every time doing the service, doing the ritual and all that, then it can seem kind of hickledy-pickledy, like it's been just shoved together. But yeah, it can lose direction, it can lose focus. But I don't know how to square that circle. I kind of like the opportunity for others to be able to partake in the service in a more leadership role, but also want to make sure that the focus doesn't go away. Moving on, some groups are very structured, hierarchical or not, with explicit bylaws, rules, and traditions. Another thing that I don't have, I haven't written up any bylaws. I have a structure to the service, but no real bylaws, no real rules. Well, more rules for me than rules for others. So, yeah. This chapter certainly gave me things to think about whenever thinking through the church setup and whatnot. Okay, 396. Let's see. Naming the group and coming up with group symbols, colors, flowers, stones, totems, and other correspondences also help build a powerful consciousness among people. Covens often use crests or other symbols to reflect their purpose and character. One technique I find powerful with any long-term group is the Astral Temple, which I do like this, and it's going to be somewhat similar to how I do the church service, so it's not going to be necessarily exactly like this, but this is something that I have had in mind for the church service as well, something very similar to this. So if you would like to do the Astral Temple, absolutely, I think it is a wonderful thing. I actually have my personal Astral Temple that I go to, my personal Astral Altar that I go to whenever I do any astral work or whatnot. I go to my Astral Altar, and it just you have everything there. It's a fantastic place. It's great. If you go there, please don't move anything. I got everything exactly where I want it. So, continuing on to 397 under the title of Group Rituals, we have Purification, which I have done videos on the Purification rites in Circle and whatnot. I did a whole series on it with Witchy Wednesdays. If you haven't seen those videos, go back to the Witchy Wednesday videos. They're in there. Don't worry, it's okay. Purification is a staple for me, and I will be talking more about that in an upcoming video with regards to the church. Response, I haven't really done a whole thing about responses, but I think I might rework a little and tweak a little for that. Certainly I think the responses are a good thing that incorporates or helps the individuals stay in tune with the service itself. And I'm going to kind of blow through these things here because we're about halfway through where I usually am, and this is actually a fairly short chapter, so not a lot of things to touch on here. Hand holding, something that I've only been in one group ritual, so I cannot remember. I think we did hold hands. It was a Samhain ritual. But hand holding, I like the way that he describes this in the situation where you have the polarity of, sorry, I have a dog hair on me because the dogs were cuddling, and then I have Jelly over here. The dogs are actually, one's laying down. Yeah, they're both laying down. Yeah, Tonks is over there laying on a blanket, actually a moving blanket that I use in the car. This is a whole sidebar, and Dobby is laying right at the end of the desk over here, and yeah, we're just kind of laying around today. It's good. It's a good Friday. I'm enjoying this. It's about 2:45. We took a little bit of a nap out on the deck. Totally not planned, but I was in my chair. I leaned back and dozed off for a couple minutes. It wasn't long, but yeah, they were outside playing, and we came in to do a video, and they're just snoozing away over there. So anyway, the hand holding. Hand holding, I like the way that he described the polarities and the way the energy is circling around one way and then circling around another way within the circle. I like that thought, but to me, the energy in circle needs to always go one way. It's just the way that I've always been, and you will see me whenever I actually do the services and whatnot. I will always walk in one direction. Not the band, in the actual one direction of clockwise, until I am deconstructing everything, and then it will be counterclockwise. So that's something that I've always done, and it's always worked well for me. It's always been something that I held close to. So yeah, that's something for me. Moving on. And I am drinking chai tea. I think this is Twinings, I believe. Let's see, yep, Twinings. They're spiced chai tea, very good. Moving on, we have the title of Gender, or the subtitle of Gender, And he writes in this, I'm only going to read one sentence of it. This poses some problems for those who identify differently than their biological gender. Keep in mind, this, and yeah, first off, this was written, when was this written? It was like 2004, 2005, 2004. Yeah. You know, I don't know if it was really that big of a discussion in 2004. I certainly did not really know of the difference of gender and sex. Back in 2004, there was no way I knew that was even a talking thing or a talking point. I never realized that up until the last few years. It's not really something that I've ever focused on. And I kind of love that it's in here because I didn't realize that was a thing. And I mean that's again from a white male that identifies as male. Um, yeah, uses the pronouns he and him. I don't, or I didn't ever think of that, and I'm trying to get better at my gender neutralizing language, just to a generic they them for everybody until they tell me, hey, I identify as or use the pronouns she and her, or they and them, or he and him, or whatever. And that's also somebody commented on my video the other day. They said girls, guys, or otherwise, and they're like, I love it. I love that intro. And I purposely did that because I don't want to gender stereotype everybody. I want to be like, hey, if you identify as a girl, great. If you identify as a guy, great. And if you don't identify as either, fantastic. You are all welcome here. So I just did not realize that the gender discussion was happening back in 2004, and I kind of love that it's in here because I didn't realize that back then. Anyway, we're gonna move on from the gender talk. Yeah, I spent a little bit long on that one, longer than I meant to. The next thing that we go on to here is the Chalice, and he's talking about the Great Rite. He's talking about blessings of the goddess upon your heart whenever you are passing the chalice around, much like the Eucharist. So, and that is something that is going to be incorporated with the church services. And I'll explain more of that in its own specific video, because the way that I envision it may not be exactly the way that certain churches envision it. So there is a difference for me. The next thing that we come across here is protection, blessing. And I absolutely love that he does this. He says that he gives a protection. I use this potion of protect to protect you from all harm on any level, and return love on the source of the harm, so mote it be. So he actually goes through and he anoints the individuals of his coven, with protection. And I absolutely love that, and I think I might have to incorporate that as well. So, I mean, that's kind of what I do with my sign-off of love, hugs, and ladybugs. I'm wishing these things upon you. The ladybugs part is a little frivolous, but, love and hugs, I wish these things upon you. I wish that you have love and you have lots of hugs, if that's something that is within your comfort zone to accept from people. Yeah, I wish that you have these comfort types of situations in your life. So, but I think a protection every time would also be something that would be quite awesome. And then we move on to group visualization. And I like the thought of group images. There certainly will be some of those in the church. Again, I'm going to be breaking down the entirety of the uh, the formula that I'm using for a standard ritual that will be happening every week. So everybody is on the same page as to what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, all that good stuff. So moving on, we have spell work. And like I said, I'm just going to touch on these. And something that I don't necessarily think is a part of the church because, spell work can be very personal to an individual and whatnot. Um, if we want to do something as a group, then possibly I am completely open to that. But I wouldn't do that as a Sunday thing. I would do that as a as needed basis type of thing. Raising energy. I want to read this little part here. Keep in mind the comfort levels of those attending. If you are working with a group that doesn't like to sing, chanting might not be your tool. If you are working with those who are physically inhibited, injured, or elderly, dancing may not be your tool. Keep your participants in mind when planning the ritual. I think this is important because in many of the books out there that, are basically Wicca 101 or Paganism 101 type of books, whenever they're talking about ritual and they talk about singing, dancing, moving around the circle, oftentimes you see them say, oh, now walk from this place to this place in this fashion. It's sort of ableist to think that everybody that's practicing is going to be in the same situation. That's not the case. We have pagans who are blind. We have pagans that are disabled. We have pagans that are, that cannot sing or maybe mute for some reason. That there is a physical restriction from them doing so. We may have pagans who have a hearing disability, so they may not, either they are very sensitive to sound or that they can't hear sound, so they might not be comfortable with drumming or, with singing because, they can't hear it, or it's too sensitive for them, or their hearing is too sensitive. Me, I can't hear for crap. I am totally tone deaf. So I will not be singing for y'all. But yeah, I like that he puts this in here because that's something that we have to remember whenever we are partaking in a group situation. Is everybody else in the group able to do all of these things? Are they capable of it? And if they are not, what do we do? I mean, you don't want them to sit on the sidelines and watch circle. You kind of want them to be involved, but how do we get them involved if they are physically incapable of doing something, or if they have certain restrictions that won't allow them to be a part of the circle as you wish them to be? How do we curb that? And I like that he puts that in there to take into consideration the people that are going to be in your ritual. I think that's very important. Moving on to 401, we have the Cone of Power, and I have a little spot underlined here. Usually spells are released individually in several cones, but some covens release all spells in one cone of power at the end. I like both of these setups, and I think the one cone of power might be better, but I don't know. And I'd like to get y'all's input on this. Which do you think would be better, several cones of power or one cone of power? Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. If that's something that I would necessarily I don't think that's anything I've never necessarily ever sat down and thought about. So, now moving on, I wanted to read this section on charging because I absolutely love this. And I love this as an idea, and I don't know how I could incorporate it or if I would incorporate it into the church setting. And that is charging. Traditions will often place special objects on the altar to absorb the perfect energies of the circle. even though they have nothing to do with a specific ritual. Members and guests can place rings, necklaces, stones, or herbs on the altar. Some traditions give members a few moments at the end, before or after spell work, to hold the object and consecrate it. Others assume the energy of the circle will banish unwanted energies and infuse it with the general blessing of the goddess and god. I like the idea of this. I don't know how to implement this in doing a YouTube style church. If we have objects, and because we are, partaking in this church service in different locations, would having an object, let's say I wanted to bless and consecrate this pen with this Sunday's energy from the service, do I put that in front of me during the entire time and just hold it and have the energies from that service pass through me into that object? Do we do that, or would it be something like you would send it to me and I would put it on the altar during the service and all that? I don't know how to incorporate that, but I think it is something that is very cool, and I would love to incorporate that because I think that would be fantastic. And then we have feasting. I don't have any notes on feasting. I think feasting is fantastic. Actually, no, I guess I do have a part on feasting. Okay. I did bracket something, so I wanted to read the entire paragraph of apparently. I didn't remember that I did this. Okay. So, you got it here live, folks. Okay. Here we go. On 402, covens also go through great... Oh, this is after the feasting part. This is his closing part. Yeah, I don't have anything to say on feasting. I think feasting is fantastic. It is a way to bring people together, and that's what I am all about with this channel, especially now. Whenever I first started my channel, it was more about making my channel to keep a kind of a journal or a look back to where I was at one point with my practice and where I am now. But now it's more about just fostering community. I mean, I'm pretty solid in where I'm at, and I will grow in my practice, because that's what I inevitably do. That's what we all do. But yeah, nowadays it's more about fostering community. Let me go ahead and read this. Covens also go through great changes. People leave for a variety of reasons. New people come, groups go through growing pains, and this is the way of life. Such changes are not necessarily personal. I prefer to mark all those changes with ritual to speak to both the universe and this group mind. If a member is leaving, do a farewell ritual, even if he or she chose not to be a part of it. If a new member joins, do a welcoming ritual. If a coven disbands, do a dissolving ritual that releases the group consciousness you have created. Likewise, when forming a group, do a group dedication or creation ritual. Be imaginative in your work and build your group consciousness together. I love this because I like the way that he says, for whatever reason, if you leave, we're going to say farewell to you, whether you're there or not. We're still going to say farewell to the group mind of you being there with us. I like that. It is an adult nature. It is honoring that person's part in the group, whether it was on good or bad terms. It's honoring that this person was a part of that group, and at one point you were on good terms. It honors that, and I am absolutely all for that. Whenever a coven disbands, doing what was he called? What he called it something here. Do a farewell ritual. No, okay. Hold on. Dissolving a dissolving ritual. Okay. I think that is fantastic, because you are putting a clear-cut end to that group as it was. Um, and in that manner, I think that is very important, even psychologically. Because if you disbanded a coven and one or two of you went off and created a new coven, it is very important to know that this new coven is not the same as the old one. It's not going to have the same individuals necessarily. It's not going to have the same rules and the bylaws and all that other stuff. It's not the same. This is a new creation, and that also goes into forming a new coven, is doing a creation ritual. Doing something that signifies this is its own entity, this is its own creation. And I think that is very important, not only um, for the coven itself and the energies that it's creating, but for the individuals involved in the psychological aspects of that. Moving on, we do have some homework here. Do exercise 37 if you have a group to work with that plans on staying together for future work. If you don't, return to this exercise in the future if the time and situation is right. Continue regular altar devotional and any other regular meditative practice. Practice divination techniques. Continue journaling regularly. And celebrate the moon and wheel of the year through ritual. So that concludes chapter 16, lesson 12, entitled Coven Working. I think this was a good chapter overall. I didn't really do a deep dive, and it was only like 10 pages, so I mean, this actually went longer than I thought it was going to. Excuse me. But yeah, it went on a little longer than I thought it was going to, because I kind of rambled about certain things. And I think this is going to set us up for a nice farewell to this book with chapter 17, which again is not a long chapter. So yeah, next week should be a fairly short video, I would assume, because it's only like, what, 7 pages? No, not 403 to 412, right? Yeah, that's 9 pages. Hey, look, math live for y'all. Okay, so yeah, 9 pages, not a bad chapter coming up. So that was chapter 16 of the Outer Temple Witchcraft by Christopher Penzek. Again, your copy can be gotten below if you don't have this. I do know that they have a 20th edition that came out, I do believe, of the Outer Temple. I know they did of the Inner Temple, but they apparently had only changed the cover for it. So I don't think any of the actual information itself has changed. Anyway, that's all that I have for today's video. Again, check out the links all down below in the nether regions. Join me tomorrow whenever I start to break down my vision for the church. Tomorrow's video is pretty much going to be just what my thought process is of what the church is going to be, not actually going into the formula of the structure or anything. It's just going to be, this is what I envision for the Christo-Pagan, pagan-ish church that I am formulating. So yeah, go and watch that video. Go and watch all the other videos. Come on now. If you enjoyed this one, if you liked it, hit that like button. If you disliked it, hit that dislike button. I don't care. I'll appease the algorithmic gods of YouTube. All hail. And leave a comment telling me what you liked, disliked, don't care for, did enjoy very much. I don't know. I'm rambling now. Be sure to also check yesterday's video, the big announcement, the big project announcement, because there is something at the very end of the video that you're going to want to know about if you haven't seen it. And I'm being very avoiding of a certain word. So go check that out. At the very end especially. Anyway, with all that being said, may you have love, hugs, and ladybugs. Bye-bye.